last night that, San Francisco, they got nothing to play for, but either does Detroit. And my takeaway is, no. Detroit had all sorts of motivation last night. They were the only undefeated team on the road all year. They could go 8-0 on the road. They're the Detroit Lions, for God's sakes. Why would they ever mail one in? And the other thing is, they play Minnesota next week. That's red hot. Why would you want to be playing coming off a loss? It was Monday Night Football. Big stage. Your secondary's got guys who are backups to backups. There was wide open 49ers the entire game. Those guys need reps. They looked lost on some of their coverages. So, this idea that they didn't have anything to play for, I thought last night's win was a huge win for Detroit. So, you got to be honest about Detroit, too. They have been kind of the team America's pulling for, right? And they've been the most talked about team, arguably, in the league this year because of Dan Campbell, the story, the culture. They're going to lose both their coordinators, Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, rock stars. This could be the year. Go ask Philadelphia and Nick Sirianni, with that roster, what happens when you hire the wrong coordinators? You almost never get brilliant coordinators, both of them. Look at San Francisco since they've lost DeMeco Ryans. Defense isn't the same. And they've hired guys with nice resumes, but DeMeco was better than both. 5% of this country is great at what they do. Doctors, pilots, defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. Truly great. How many great quarterbacks do we have? 6, 5? In 32 teams, each one's got 2, maybe some have 3. 5. And how many great coaches? 5. So they're going to lose their coordinators. And if they lose to Minnesota next week, who, by the way, is red hot. So, again, I love them coming from behind and winning a game on the road, growing confidence, especially with the backups playing on defense that need the reps. If they lose to Minnesota, this team that we've talked about all year and was the best team in football in September and October and early November, they could go to Tampa for a playoff game. If they lose next weekend. Tampa, red-hot Baker Mayfield, and Mike Evans, who that Lions secondary can't cover. Or the healthiest team in the league, the Rams, who, by the way, almost beat the Lions early in the year. I think it was like week 1. And at that time, Detroit's defense had all its starters. Now it's got about 4 of them, 5 of them. So the idea that it didn't mean much last night, that secondary is going to face Justin Jefferson and either Mike Evans or Puka Nacua. They needed reps. Ricky Pearsall's not in that class, and he was open a lot. George Kittle was open a lot. You needed to play your dudes. You needed to win that football game.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack here. Okay? Okay. I don't even know where I want to begin, honestly. Because when he was talking, I was like, oh, I'm going to say this. And then he kept talking, and I was just like, okay, I guess I'm going to say this now. First off, this was not a big win. This was, let's just get that out there. This was not a big win. The Lions wanted to play well and play great because they want to continue that momentum. It's a big win in the context of this is part of their identity as we treat every game as essentially our Super Bowl, that we go all in practice. We go all in on the bus ride to the stadium. We go all in on just 10 o'clock at night. We're having a late night meal and whatever and watching some film. We go all in, baby. Like that's just their mentality, no matter what, whether it's a meaningless game or whether it's the most important game. And that's just their culture and their identity as a whole. So let's not isolate this as like, this was a big game and this, that, because it's like, in the context of things, like, no. But now to the real part that made my, right. The Lions fear the Rams and the Buccaneers. What? Like, what? Yeah, they gave up points to Brock Purdy and the 49ers, without a doubt. But if you think that the Lions have fear of those teams, or that there's big concerns, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I've talked about certain teams having a healthy dose of, like, and here I kind of use fear in different ways, because I actually just made a video talking about, like, you know, on First Things First, they were like, should the Bengals fear Cincinnati? And I kind of went on a whole rant being like, all these top teams should kind of have a healthy sense of fear with all of them, right? The Ravens and the Bills should fear each other. The Chiefs and the Ravens, the Chiefs and the Bills, the Bengals and the Ravens. Like, these are all top elite, larger than life quarterbacks that in any given moment, like, they could just go off. Lamar Jackson could go off. Mahomes could go off. Burrow can go off. Allen could go off. So they should always have some sort of fear. Like, they're always going to have that hyper awareness. The defensive coordinators are going to have some uncomfortability, some fear. That makes sense to me. But there's levels to this. Will the Detroit Lions have some concerns? Some consideration of, okay, Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp? Yeah, absolutely. But Colin's painting a scenario where it's like, they might have to go and face the Rams. If they lose against the Vikings, they're going to have to face the Rams, the Buccaneers. And it's like, what? What are we doing here? If they can't beat the Buccaneers and the Rams, well, then they're not Super Bowl contenders. So then it's like, what are we talking about then? Like what? There's a difference. There's a difference between saying the Bengals and, you know, or that the Bills and the Chiefs should fear the Bengals getting into the playoffs. That's a different topic. That's a different conversation. That makes logical sense. But, like, this notion that the Lions now should be on this you got it backwards. You know, I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. It's the Buccaneers that are like, man, the Lions dropped down to the 5 seed, or man, you know, whoever, like, we got to face the Lions now. That's like the worst matchup to start. Are you kidding me? Like, let's say the way how the seeding worked, where the Lions dropped down to the 7th seed. I know it can't, but let's just say, like, that's just the way how the season unfolded. That's like the worst thing that ever could happen for the 2 seed. The 2 seed would be in a position where they would be better off being the 3 or the 4 or the 5 seed, or the 6 seed even. So, like, no. I understand some of the concerns around the Lions. I've aired them out. I've absolutely aired them out. And it makes sense that there is legitimate concerns. I get it. The defense is not there. Not 100% how you want it. Giving up 34 points to the 49ers, who have not been good this season, is not the best look. It's not the best, you know, situation that you want. Obviously, ideally, you'd want to win 40-10 or something. That would send more of a message. I get that. I do. But, like, I can't wrap my head around this notion. Again, the Lions should have some fear, and again, a healthy fear. The same fear that I said the Chiefs should have, and the Bills should have, and the Ravens should have. The Lions should have a fear of the Vikings. I think so. Even though they beat them, like, absolutely. The Lions should have a fear of the Philadelphia Eagles. Absolutely. The Philadelphia Eagles should have some fear of the Lions and of the Vikings. Like, those are the teams that should be like, all right, man, like, it is truly all hands on deck. Heck, I think there should be a healthy fear of the Packers. Because truly, at any given moment, Jordan Love can also just go off. I think there should be a healthy fear of even Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Because we've never seen them in the playoffs, and who knows? Jaden Daniels might take over. I mean, he's shaping up to being like a legitimate top quarterback in the NFL. And it's not to say that the Buccaneers or the Rams are these bad teams, because I said, you know, before, who wants to face the Buccaneers? Who would want to face the Rams? But again, there's different levels of that mentality. You don't want to necessarily maybe face that team, but there's not a fear of like, oh man, I really wish we didn't have this first round matchup or something. Like, again, to me, Colin's coming on too strong of just like, oh man, like, you're going to have to face the Rams. Okay. If you can't beat the Rams, then you can't win the Super Bowl. If you can't beat the Buccaneers, you can't win the Super Bowl. So, like, no. Like, no. Not to mention, what about the Rams defense on the Lions offense? What about the Buccaneers defense on the Lions offense? And I don't care what happened weeks ago. weeks and weeks and weeks ago. I don't care what happened in a different month. It means nothing to me. What happened in September and October, November for that matter, really 100% means nothing to me at this point. From the bottom of my heart, I do not care. It means nothing. If we look at it collectively as a whole, and as kind of like a more bigger picture to a degree, yeah, we can be like, oh, look, you know, the 49ers, this is one of the most points they scored all year or something like, right? Like we kind of have this more like general, vague kind of conversation. Sure, talking about what happened in September and October and all that's fine. But when we really lock in and zoom in and talk about head-to-head matchups, well, the Buccaneers played the Lions really good. Okay, months ago means nothing to me. It means 100% nothing to me. Oh, they did a great job of stopping Amon-Ra St. Brown. Okay. If they've played each other like 10 times, if this was like basketball or baseball where they played each other like 100 times in the season, okay, sure, maybe. But right now, that's obviously not the case. That's not football. So again, it means 1,000% nothing to me. Truly nothing to me. Even the win of the Lions versus the Rams means nothing to me. What was that? The week 1? I think that was their opening day for both of them. So, no. And again, to be very clear, I'm not acting like the Lions rolled those teams or that there should be, again, no concerns. Because, yeah, like I said, especially Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford, like, yeah, that's a real thing you're going to have to deal with and wrestle with. But it's just, we're heightening that to have too much on the receiving end of the Lions of being like, uh-oh. Because if that's the case, then again, then they can't win a Super Bowl. Then what are we doing here? Like, seriously, what are we doing here? And out of all the teams, that's who the Lions would want to face. You're going to want to face the Rams. You're going to want to face the Buccaneers. You're not going to want to face the Vikings or the Eagles until like the NFC Championship game. That's the ideal scenario for the Lions. But also try to refrain when kind of leaving comments of like, the Lions should fear no one. Because that's just not true either. That's like a fake mentality. I get the idea of like, we don't fear anyone. And I think also like individually certain players, because they always, you know, Nick Wright tries to always act like, oh, Joe Burrow fears Patrick Mahomes. And I'm like, no. Those guys see each other as equals. Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, they don't fear each other at all. In the sense that some people use fear. That's why fear is a tricky word because it can kind of mean like, sometimes it means angst. Sometimes it means, you know, concerned. Like it can kind of mean so many different things. So it's like, it can get a little bit complicated. And that's not lost on me. Which is why like, I tried my best to try to like draw these like firm lines. But they're lines in the sand. So not the easiest thing to do. But hopefully that made sense. But yeah, I don't know, man. No. That's the way it landed on me where I'm like, you're going to have to face the Rams and Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers. Okay, and if that concerns you, then you know what? Just go home. You know, save everybody some trouble and just go home. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Detroit Lions? Are you concerned about the Lions? About them, you know, do you think they needed this big win? And do you think that they have concerns about going up against the Buccaneers and the Rams? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussion. But the Dallas Cowboys with Cooper Rush beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, by the way. The score was like 12-9 or 13-9 against the Arizona Cardinals for the Rams. Okay. Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, whether you agree with me or disagree with me. Either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much, and see you next time.